It's clear at this point with rising interest rates that the housing boom is over, or at least it's slowing down. But what's important to understand about the prices today is how we got here and what changed during the pandemic. And lucky for us, the Bank of Canada just released a study talking about the difference between prices in urban areas versus the suburbs and the effect that the pandemic had on those prices, which I think will shed a little bit of light on what's going to happen in the near future with respect to housing prices when they do start to come down. And let's call a spade, they have started to come down due to higher interest rates, and higher interest rates are not going away anytime soon. But before we get into all the details, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about our Race to 25,000 subscribers contest, where on July 1st, that's like 11 days away, we're going to give away $5,000 to one lucky subscriber. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed to this channel and go to 360giveaway.ca, fill out the form. You get an extra entry if you follow me on Instagram and if you share the contest socially. So go ahead, 360giveaway.ca. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss the house price boom and what happened during the pandemic, and specifically why housing prices went up so much. And this is a really interesting piece of data that came out from the Bank of Canada today, and BNN Bloomberg obviously picked this up right away. Canada's house price boom strongest in suburbs as gap with downtown shrinks, says study, Bank of Canada. So this is a really interesting study with respect to the gap in prices and basically the premium that was previously put on proximity to things like downtown areas and things like being closer to the core and having a shorter commute, and how that disappeared during the pandemic. And why this is so important is because I believe that this is going to be an indicator of what's going to happen with real estate prices across Canada as the economic stimulus from the pandemic unwinds, and as those preferences unwind, as people realize that they want to be back closer to where the action is, closer to work, and as the ability to work from home starts to go away. And if you take a look here, this is the actual study itself. You can see released today, analyzing the house price boom in suburbs of Canada's major city during the pandemic. And they start with the phrase location, 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 the old real estate adage says. And that has always been true for Canada. There's always been this preference for Canadians to want to live close to the action, close to the downtown cores. And at some points in time, there was up to a 35% premium for housing near the downtown core. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But it's really, really interesting that that changed during the pandemic. And now all of a sudden we're seeing it change back. And we're starting to see a lot of the price drops happen in the suburban areas first. And my feeling is that that is probably going to be where we're going to see the majority of price drops. We probably aren't going to see it quite as much in the downtown areas as people start to move back closer to the proximity of downtown. So if we go in here and we take a look, there's some really interesting graphs here, some really interesting charts and data. You can see first and foremost, they covered most of the major cities in Canada. And this is the first one that I want to point out because this is the average increase in house prices between 2019 and 2021 by distance from the downtown areas of Canada's major cities. And what you can see is that in and around the downtown cores, housing prices didn't go up. So within 0 to 5 kilometers, they went up about 20%, but they didn't go up as much, I should say, as other areas. But as you start to get further and further away, we start to get to this 20 to 25 kilometer away point, and then 30 to 40 kilometers away. And then look at this, 70 to 75 kilometers away. You can see that housing prices went up substantially in those areas that were further and further away from the downtown cores. And then if you take a look at downtown Montreal and downtown Toronto, Toronto being on the left, Montreal being on the right, what you can see is that there wasn't much price growth in those downtown cores. It was typically under 10% or around 10%, but you start to get into these outlying areas and you have these massive, massive amounts of increases in housing prices. And this is largely, again, due to that preference for more space, wanting to be closer to the outdoors due to the pandemic and the ability to be outdoors and not necessarily get sick. And it's really an interesting picture of the evolution of what happened in Canada's real estate market over the last 2 years. Now, the question is, what is going to happen? Well, I have a feeling that as interest rates continue to go up, those more desirable properties closer to the downtown cores are going to continue to be more desirable. They're probably going to have less reduction in prices, but if you bought in those suburbs, you're probably going to see more pain in the real estate market than you did if you bought in city centers. Now, if you go and you take a look here, I love this graph because this is a graph showing the premium associated with living close to downtown during the pandemic and how it fell. So if you go back here and you take a look at 2016, which is the blue line, which you can see is that 0% is if you were right in the downtown core. And then as you move further and further away, this was the reduction in prices that was associated with living further from the core. And as you got about 80 kilometers away from the core of a downtown center, you saw about a 36% reduction in prices. Now, in 2019, this gap was starting to close. So people were starting to have a preference towards moving further and further away from downtown as housing prices continued to go up. But look what happened in 2021. Now there's about a 10% to 11% difference in prices as you get further away from the core. And if you are 10, 20, 30 kilometers from the core, there isn't a significantly better deal for housing anymore like there was back in 2016 and 2019. So this is really, really interesting. And what it leads to is it leads to essentially a conclusion of what might happen in the Canadian real estate market, because we are going to see certain markets decline. And the markets that we see decline are likely going to be those that are further away from the core. Again, as people's preferences change, as they realize that a 2-hour commute sucks and they don't want to do it every single day, as they realize that they want to spend more time with their family, because that's why they moved to the suburbs anyways, so they could spend more time with their family in the outdoors and in nicer areas, in bigger houses. Well, they probably are going to want to be able to spend more time with their family by not having to have a commute, which means they're going to move back to those cores, which means you're going to see higher demand closer to downtown, less demand in the suburbs, which is going to support the prices in the downtown areas. And as a result, you're going to see that price gap between downtown cores and suburban areas start to widen. Will it ever make it back to where it was in 2016? Probably not. But if you own property in the downtown areas, you're probably going to see less of a downturn than if you own property in the suburbs. And here's what that means. There's going to be an opportunity to buy houses at a discount in the outlying areas. There probably isn't going to be an opportunity to buy them at a discount in the downtown areas. So if you're looking for a property in the downtown area, don't expect that you're going to get a 30 to 40% discount on that property. Maybe possibly if you're 80 kilometers from the downtown core, you might be able to see that. But for the most part, if you are either in that downtown core or you are shopping in that downtown core, don't sit there and wait for housing prices to drop as substantially as they are in other parts of the city or other parts of the area, because there's a very high likelihood that they just aren't going to. By the way, if you're in the market to purchase a property and you want to know everything there is to know about buying a home, you can get our real estate boot camp. It will prepare you for everything you need to know about buying a home, including how to pick the right real estate agent, because that is probably one of the most misunderstood tasks in the real estate process, is making sure that you have the right agent, one that works for you and one that will advocate for you. And it can make the single biggest difference in purchasing a property, because if you have the right agent, they will either be able to sell your property for the top dollar or make sure you buy the right property at the best price if you're buying. So make sure you check out that real estate bootcamp. Link in the description below. It's good for first-time homebuyers and homebuyers who are already established. It's a good reminder, and it is so cheap that you should be able to get 10 to 50 times your money back on the cost of that course. And if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.